how did children learn multiplication facts? And what if we're starting with counting in groups, for instance, to learn what multiplication is, or
Yes.
repeated addition? How do we move from that basic stage to actually having fluent recall of my 7 times tables?
Yeah. First of all, that was so good to hear you say all of those things. I was wanting to go, yes, yes, to all of that. Absolutely brilliant. So yeah, so it starts early in foundation stage with children becoming familiar and understanding equal groups and making equal groups, and then sort of looking at, we can add those equal groups and looking at repeated addition, and then making the connection between repeated addition and multiplication. I always like to give an example. For example, if we had 75 lots of 5, if I had to write 75, add 75, add 75, add 70, no, 5, add 5, add 5, add 5, add 5, add 5, 75 times, I'd finish up running off my book onto the person's book next to me, onto the person's book next to them, and right up the way across the classroom. So we're really, in maths, we might like to make life a little bit easier. So we've got the time sign. So instead of having to do 5, add 5, add 5, add 5, add 5, 75 times, we can just write 75 times 5. So
And
helping
that's
children.
a critical concept, isn't it, for
Yes.
multiplication? Because having spent lots of years teaching in year 6, I know that when it comes to working with fractions, for example, and multiplying them, if we don't have a concept of actually what's happening when you multiply things, it becomes really complex. If you can actually think of 3 times quarters is just 3 lots of 3 quarters.
Yes.
Conceptually, that makes a lot more sense, and you
Yes.
can picture what that looks like. But
Yeah.
otherwise, it becomes very abstract very quickly, doesn't it?
100%. And the number of times that sort of worked with children struggling with times tables, and I've said, okay, can you show me, for example, 3 times 5? And they'll, like with Numicon, so they'll get me a 3 shape and they'll get a 5 shape because they've not
Yeah.
understood that 3 times 5 means 5 add 5 add 5. So that's a really critical connection that we need to help children make early on. And then we can move on to sort of helping children really see the patterns and the connections that exist in multiplication.